Evelyn, I've met someone, and I want out. I looked up from my coffee, startled. My husband, Mark, stood in the doorway of the kitchen, his expression cold and unfamiliar. Out? What do you mean out? I'm asking for a divorce. The room felt like it was closing in on me. The usual morning sounds of chirping birds and distant traffic faded into a numbing silence. I don't understand, I managed to say. Why now? What's going on? I've been seeing someone, he continued, now avoiding my eyes. Her name is Kylie. She's 22. His words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. I felt my throat tighten. 22? I repeated, astonished. Are you serious? He nodded. And she's pregnant. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave, crashing down and pulling me into its dark waters. She's pregnant? Mark, we have 2 sons. What the hell are you thinking? It's complicated, Evelyn, he said, his tone almost dismissive. I've been unhappy for a long time. Unhappy? In our 20 years of marriage, you've never said a word about being unhappy. My voice shook with anger and disbelief. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I can't keep living a lie, he said, turning away. I can't. I felt tears well up but blinked them away. What about Jesse and Alex? How do you think they're going to take this? You're not just walking out on me, you're walking out on them. Mark sighed heavily, finally looking at me with a trace of something. Regret, perhaps. I'll talk to them. I'll explain. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. Explain what? That their father is leaving their mother for a girl barely older than them? That he's starting a new family because he's unhappy? I took a deep breath, trying to hold on to some semblance of composure. You should leave, Mark. We'll talk later, once the boys are home. He nodded without saying another word and left the kitchen. I stared at the empty doorway, the realization of my new reality sinking in. The life I'd built, the future I'd envisioned, all crumbling with a few sentences. Hours later, the front door opened, and Jesse and Alex bounded into the house, laughing about something from school. I heard them drop their bags and head straight for the kitchen, where I was trying to gather myself. Hey, Mom, Jesse said, grabbing a soda from the fridge. Alex buzzed around, looking for something to eat. I forced a smile. Hey, boys, come sit for a moment. We need to talk. They exchanged curious glances, but did as asked. Your dad said something this morning. Something you need to hear from me. Alex's jovial expression faded. What's up, Mom? I struggled to find the words. Your dad has been having an affair. He wants a divorce. Jesse's face darkened, his can of soda untouched. An affair? With who? Her name is Kylie. She's 22, and she's pregnant. Alex went pale. This is some kind of joke, right? Dad wouldn't. Jesse cut him off, eyes blazing. Where is he? Jesse, I started, but it was too late. He stormed out of the kitchen, calling for his father. This isn't over, Mom, Alex said quietly. We're not letting him do this to us. The front door slammed as Jesse ran outside. I sank into my chair, every part of me aching. My husband was gone, my family was in pieces, but there was no time for self-pity. The fight was only just beginning. The house felt eerily silent after Jesse stormed out. I heard Alex muttering under his breath, his fists clenched in frustration. My mind raced, trying to find a way forward. I needed to talk to someone who understood, so I picked up the phone and called my best friend Laura. Hey, Evelyn, what's up? She answered, her voice cheerful. Laura, I need you, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. She could tell from my tone something was wrong. I'll be right over, she said, no questions asked. 15 minutes later, Laura was in my kitchen, her eyes widening as I told her everything. Jesus, Evelyn, she said, shaking her head. I can't believe he'd do this to you. I don't know what to do, I confessed. How do I even begin to pick up the pieces? Laura grabbed my hands, her grip firm and reassuring. You fight. You are one of the strongest women I know. We'll get through this together. At that moment, we heard the front door slam. Jesse was back, his face flushed with anger. Dad's not here, he spat out. He's probably with her. Laura stood up, giving Jesse a hug. We'll figure it out, she said to him softly. He nodded, though his fists were still clenched tight. We need to plan, I said after a moment, my mind racing. We can't let him walk all over us. Jesse's eyes lit up with a fierce determination. Mom, let's make him pay. I took a deep breath, feeling a newfound resolve. All right, but let's do this smart. No impulsive moves. We gather evidence. We expose him for the liar he is. I'll help, Jesse said, his voice steady. The door opened again and Alex walked in, his eyes darting between us. "What's going on?" he asked. "We're figuring out how to deal with your dad," I explained. Alex plopped down on a chair, crossing his arms. "He can't just leave us like this. We make him regret it." Laura nodded. "You have a capable team here, and I'll help in any way I can." I looked at my boys, feeling a surge of determination. We're going to tackle this strategically. No rushing in, we plan, and we strike when the time is right. Jesse leaned forward, a wicked grin forming. "What's the first step?" I glanced at Laura, then back at my boys. "First, we gather information, figure out what we can use. Then, we consult a lawyer. We need to know our options." Laura's eyes shone with approval. "That's the Evelyn I know. Let's get to work." Suddenly, the weight of the betrayal felt a little lighter. We had a plan, and we had each other. Together, we would face this head-on. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. Mark didn't come home that night or the next. He sent a text saying he was staying with Kylie. The message infuriated me. He didn't even have the decency to call. It was clear where his priorities lay, and it wasn't with us. I scheduled a meeting with a high-powered divorce lawyer, Jane Miller. Laura came with me to the appointment for moral support. Jane greeted us in her office with a firm handshake. "Evelyn, I'm sorry you're going through this. Let's discuss your options." I explained the situation, my voice trembling slightly as I recounted the details. Jane listened intently, jotting down notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. "Mark's actions give us a strong case. Adultery, especially with a much younger woman, can play in our favor, especially if his behavior affects your sons." "What can we do to make sure he faces the consequences?" I asked. Jane smiled slightly. "First, we need evidence. Document everything. Texts, emails, anything that proves his infidelity and neglect. We can use that to our advantage in court." Laura squeezed my hand. "We've got this, Evelyn." Back home, Jesse was waiting for an update. He listened intently as I relayed Jane's advice. "So we need evidence," he said, pacing the living room. "We start with his phone. He's careless with it, leaving it around unguarded." Alex nodded in agreement. "And we can install cameras, catch him in the act." It felt wrong to spy, but Mark had broken our trust first. I nodded. "Okay, but we need to be careful. No one can know what we're up to until we're ready." That night, after the boys went to bed, I carefully placed a small camera in the living room, hidden among the books on the shelf. Days turned into weeks. Mark showed up sporadically to collect some of his things, avoiding any meaningful conversation. Each time he entered the house, I felt a mix of anger and pain. One evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, Jesse walked in, his expression conspiratorial. "Mom, I have something," he whispered. "Come see." He led me to his room, where his laptop was open. He played a video, footage from the living room camera. Mark and Kylie, all over each other, right where Alex and Jesse had grown up playing. I felt a wave of nausea. "That bastard," I muttered, more to myself than Jesse. "It's not just this," Jesse continued. "I also checked Dad's emails. He's been discussing leaving us with her, planning a new life." I clenched my fists. "Good work, Jesse. We'll use this. We'll show everyone exactly who he is." The next step was clear. We would gather more footage, more proof. When the time was right, I would strike. For now, the days were a waiting game. But every minute, I felt stronger, more determined. This was our fight, and we were going to win. Mark and Kylie moved into an apartment across town. With them gone, the house felt emptier, but the boys and I were determined to focus on our plan. Laura helped me install more cameras discreetly throughout the house. Every movement, every betrayal would be caught on tape. One afternoon, I walked into the office where Mark used to work from home. The emptiness was jarring. I placed a camera behind his old books, another fitting reminder of his deceit. Returning to my own work, I was careful to maintain a facade of normalcy. My colleagues at the marketing firm couldn't know what was happening behind the scenes. Jane had warned me that any sign of distress could be used against me in the divorce proceedings. "Hey, Evelyn, you okay?" asked David, a coworker with a concerned look. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just dealing with some personal stuff." He nodded sympathetically. "Let me know if you need anything." I thanked him and dove back into my tasks, using work as an escape. Meanwhile, Jesse and Alex were busy at school. Jesse had enlisted his closest friends to start spreading rumors about Mark and his young mistress, ensuring other parents and teachers would hear of it. One evening, Jesse came in, obviously irritated. "Mom, Dad came to my school today." I looked up, concerned. What did he want? He tried to talk to me about Kylie, acting like everything's fine, like I was supposed to just accept it. I felt my blood boil. "What did you say?" "I told him he chose this path, and he's dead to me," Jesse said coldly. "He has no right to waltz into my life and pretend it's all good." Alex chimed in. "I heard some kids talking about Dad's girlfriend. It's getting around." "Good," I replied. "The more people know, the less sympathy he'll get." We continued gathering evidence. Each visit Mark made, he let slip more about his sordid affair. At night, I watched the footage, cataloging every scrap of incrimination. One night, Mark showed up while I was at work. Jesse and Alex were ready. Hidden cameras captured every selfish word exchanged between him and Kylie, who had accompanied him. "Baby, we just need to keep things quiet until the divorce is final," Mark said, unaware of the camera. "Then it's just us. We'll have the life we dreamed of." Kylie pouted. "It better be soon. I'm not sticking around if this drags out." Jesse's voice was clear in the recording. "Don't worry, it won't." Mark turned, startled. "Jesse, I didn't see you there." "Interesting conversation you're having," Jesse said, his tone icy. Mark stammered, trying to compose himself. "It's more complicated than it seems, son." "Don't call me that," Jesse shot back. "You're no father to me." When I got home and watched the footage, I smiled grimly. This was exactly what we needed. The seeds of his downfall were sown, and they were beginning to sprout. As days passed, the tension in our household became more bearable. We knew what we were working towards. We were preparing for a revelation that would shatter Mark's illusion of control. We were ready. We just needed the right moment to strike. Mark's visits became less frequent, but when he did show up, he made sure everyone knew he was still in control. His arrogance was palpable. One afternoon, he arrived to pick up some more of his things. I watched from the kitchen as he loaded his car, Kylie waiting in the passenger seat. "What are you staring at?" he called out, noticing me through the window. I walked out onto the porch, keeping my voice even. "Just wondering how long you think you can keep this facade up." He smirked. "You won't win, Evelyn. You should accept it and move on." "Move on?" I scoffed. "You destroyed our family. You think I'm just going to let that slide?" Kylie chimed in, waving her hand dismissively. "Honestly, Evelyn, you should just let it go. You'll only make it harder on yourself." I looked at her, full of disdain. "You have no idea what you've stepped into, Kylie." Mark's anger flashed. "Don't you dare talk to her that way." I walked right up to him, my voice cold. "Get your things and get out, Mark. Your time here is over." He grabbed another box and stormed back to the car. "You're going to regret this," he muttered. As he drove off, Alex approached. "Mom, do you really think we can pull this off?" I looked at him, determined. "Yes, Alex, we will." The school was buzzing with rumors. Jesse and Alex's efforts weren't going unnoticed. Parents were starting to whisper about Mark's new relationship. It wasn't long before the gossip reached his workplace, a prestigious law firm where appearances mattered. One evening, I found Jesse in the living room, his face lit by his laptop screen. "Mom, come here. You need to see this." He showed me a series of emails he'd intercepted from Mark's account. They discussed not just his relationship with Kylie, but also questionable dealings at his firm. "He's been hiding more than his affair," Jesse said. "This could ruin him at work." "We need to compile this," I replied. "This is our ace in the hole." We spent the next few nights printing out emails, logging video footage, and preparing our case. Every lie, every deceit was documented, ready to be exposed. "You've become quite the investigator," I said to Jesse one night, admiring his diligence. "Just want to make sure he pays," Jesse replied. One morning I got a call from Jane. "Evelyn, I think we're ready to proceed. It's time to make the formal move." "Thank you, Jane," I replied, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. "We'll be ready." As the week went on, Mark's public image began to deteriorate. Warnings floated around his firm, whispers of misconduct. It was clear he was feeling the pressure. One evening, as we reviewed our evidence again, Alex looked at me worriedly. "Are you sure this will work, Mom?" I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Alex, we've got everything we need. And when the time comes, they will see exactly who Mark Parker really is. The plan was set. We waited, bided our time, until the day of reckoning arrived. The fall of Mark Parker was imminent, and, as I watched my boys stand by my side, I felt stronger than ever. The day of the family gathering arrived. I'd invited everyone, my parents, Mark's parents, close friends, and our boys. It was supposed to be a peaceful get-together, but this time it felt like the calm before a storm. Mark arrived, visibly uncomfortable. He scanned the room, his eyes narrowing when he saw the extended family. Kylie wasn't with him, and I could see he felt exposed without his backup. As everyone settled with their drinks and snacks, I stood up, clinking my glass for attention. "Thank you all for coming. I know this isn't easy, but we need to clear the air." Mark shifted in his seat, feigning confusion. "Evelyn, what's this about?" I took a deep breath, setting the stage. "It's about the terms of our divorce. You all should know exactly what's been happening." His face turned red. "This isn't the place." "It's the perfect place," I interrupted. "Everyone here deserves to hear the truth." I walked to the TV, picking up the remote. The first video played, footage from the hidden cameras. It showed Mark kissing Kylie in our living room, whispering sweet nothings while planning their future. Gasps filled the room. Mark's mother turned pale. His father's expression hardened. My parents looked at me sympathetically, their disappointment in Mark crystal clear. Mark stood up, trying to turn off the TV. "This is private. You have no right." I cut him off, pointing at the footage. "You made it public the moment you brought her into our home. Sit down." Jesse and Alex stood behind me, showing unwavering support. I clicked play again. This time it revealed Mark's shady dealings, the emails implicating him in unethical practices at work. "You've lied, cheated, and betrayed not just me, but our entire family," I said, my voice firm. "Today, everyone sees who you really are." Mark's face blanched. He tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. His carefully constructed facade was crumbling. "How could you?" his mother whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "You don't understand," Mark stammered. "It's more complicated." "Spare us," Jesse snapped. "You've done enough damage. It's time you face the consequences." The room was thick with tension. Mark's eyes darted around, seeking any sign of support, but finding none. His father finally spoke, voice shaking with controlled rage. "You've disgraced us. Your actions are unforgivable." I turned to everyone. "The divorce will proceed. I'll be taking legal action for everything he's done. You all needed to know." Mark looked defeated, eyes downcast. He mumbled almost to himself, "I never meant for this to happen." "Bullshit," I said. "You knew exactly what you were doing." I laid out the papers Jane had prepared, detailing the consequences of his actions. Mark would face significant financial penalties, and his reputation in tatters would ensure his job was in jeopardy. Laura stepped forward, handing out copies of the documents to those who needed them. "This is over, Mark. You can't manipulate your way out this time." The family began to disperse, murmuring amongst themselves. Mark sat alone, realizing his empire had fallen, piece by piece, right in front of everyone he once controlled. I turned to Jesse and Alex, feeling a weight lifted. "We did it," I said quietly. Jesse nodded, a small smile forming. "This is just the beginning. Now it's his turn to suffer." As the evening ended, I felt a sense of closure start to take hold. The truth was out, and Mark was facing the reality of his actions. This was our first victory, but it wouldn't be our last. A week after the family gathering, I got a frantic call from Mark. His voice was uncharacteristically shaky. "Evelyn, can we meet? Please, I need to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground. Mark looked haggard, his eyes hollow. The man who once exuded arrogance now seemed pitifully desperate. "Evelyn," he began, "I've lost my job. They said it's because of the scandal." I sat back, sipping my coffee. "You brought this on yourself, Mark. Actions have consequences." He leaned forward, eyes pleading. "I still love you. Maybe we can work things out for the boys' sake." I felt a mix of anger and disgust. "Don't insult me, Mark. You didn't think about the boys when you were with Kylie. This isn't about love. It's about you facing the fallout of your choices." Mark's face crumpled. "Kylie's left me. She admitted she wasn't really pregnant. She used me, Evelyn. She saw the writing on the wall and bolted." I felt a grim satisfaction but stayed composed. "What did you expect? You left your family for a lie. Now you're dealing with reality." He buried his face in his hands. I've lost everything. Please, I need your help. I stood up, cold and resolute. You made your bed, Mark. Now lie in it. I won't be part of your salvation. As I walked out, I felt a sense of closure. For too long, I'd been the one to bend, to accommodate. Now, I was the one setting the terms. Back at home, Jesse and Alex were waiting. Jesse's face lit up with curiosity. How did it go? He's lost everything, I said. Kylie left him. He got fired. He's finally seeing the consequences. Alex's eyes widened. Wow, he really thought he could have it all. People who act like that always think they can get it away with it, I replied. But life has a way of correcting those delusions. Days turned into weeks, and the finalization of the divorce neared. Mark continued to reach out, but his attempts were largely met with silence. He came to the house one last time, papers in hand, looking more defeated than I had ever seen him. Please, Evelyn, just one more chance, he begged at the doorstep. I took the papers without a word, turned, and closed the door behind me. His pleas faded into the background as I went to the kitchen where the boys were waiting. We're officially free, I announced, holding up the signed papers. He can't touch us anymore. Jesse grinned. This is a new beginning. Alex hugged me tightly. Thanks, Mom. You got us through this. The truth was, we got each other through it. The ordeal had been grueling, but it had also forged a stronger bond between us. We were no longer defined by Mark's betrayal. We stood united, with a clear path ahead. Our lives started to rebuild. Each day, the weight of the past lifted a little more. In the end, Mark was a prisoner of his own choices, while we moved forward, stronger and more resilient. This was our victory, and we had earned every bit of it. The finalization of the divorce came quicker than I anticipated. Jane had been relentless, using every bit of evidence we'd gathered to ensure we got a fair settlement. At last, it was over. The judge had ruled in our favor, awarding us the house and a significant amount of alimony and child support. I was sitting in the living room when Jesse came down, looking relieved. We did it, Mom. It's finally over. Alex joined us, collapsing onto the couch. I can't believe it. No more court dates, no more fighting. I smiled at my boys. We made it through. Now we get to rebuild our lives. The first step was facing the memories that haunted the house. We spent the next few days rearranging furniture and redecorating, turning it into something new, something ours. One evening, as we sat in our freshly painted living room, Alex looked around and said, "It feels different now. Better. Because it's truly ours." Jesse added, "No more shadows of Dad lurking around." The transformation of the house mirrored the changes in our lives. We started doing more together. Movie nights, weekend trips, simple dinners that turned into laughter-filled evenings. Meanwhile, Mark struggled to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. He would call occasionally, asking to speak with the boys. Sometimes they answered, other times they didn't. They were carving out their own boundaries. One afternoon, I bumped into Kylie at the supermarket. She looked different, less confident, more subdued. She glanced at me and quickly looked away, shame evident in her eyes. Laura and I met for coffee later that week. "I saw Kylie today," I said, stirring my cappuccino. "She looked like a shadow of her former self." "Good," Laura replied curtly. "She deserved it." I nodded. "And Mark?" "You heard about the job hunt?" she asked. "No one's willing to touch him now. His reputation's trashed." "It's the least he deserves," I said. Life went on, each day a step further away from the chaos Mark had brought into our lives. Jesse and Alex slowly but surely found their own ways to move forward. Jesse took up a summer job, and Alex threw himself into his school projects. One evening, Mark showed up at the house, looking more disheveled than ever. "Can we talk?" he pleaded. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Mark?" I just want to apologize. I've lost everything, Evelyn. The boys, our home, my job." I looked at him, feeling a mix of pity and relief. He'd finally faced the consequences of his actions. "It's too late for apologies, Mark. We've moved on. You need to do the same." He nodded, tears welling up. "I know. I'm sorry for everything." I watched him walk away, a broken man. As I turned back to the house, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. Justice had been served, and we'd come out stronger on the other side. Back inside, Jesse looked up from his book. "Who was it?" "Just someone from the past," I said, smiling. "Nothing to worry about." Alex joined me in the kitchen. "What's for dinner?" "How about we order pizza and watch a movie?" I suggested. Sounds perfect, Alex said, grinning. As the evening unfolded, filled with laughter and a sense of peace, I knew we were finally free from Mark's shadow. We had found our closure, and now we could truly begin anew. The past was behind us, and our future was ours to shape.
What does it mean to live a lie so convincing that even those closest to you see only shadows of the truth? At 29, I stood on the precipice of that question, gazing out from my penthouse office, 48 floors above Manhattan. The city's lights sprawling like a chessboard where I'd played a secret game for 12 years. My name is Abigail Peterson, and to my family, I was a perennial disappointment, a corporate drone who couldn't hold a job. That morning, as I resigned from Morris and Associates, my sister Amanda's call pierced the silence, her voice a familiar blade of contempt. The truth, however, was far grander. I was the chairman of Peterson Global Investments, a multi-billion-dollar empire I'd built in the shadows, and the stage was set for a reckoning. The phone vibrated on my mahogany desk, Amanda's name flashing like a warning. Seriously, Abigail. Fired again, she sneered, her words dripping with the smugness of someone who'd spent years measuring her triumphs against my supposed failures. What is this? The third time in 2 years I held the phone away, staring at my reflection in the tinted glass sharp cheekbones, a tailored charcoal suit, eyes that hid a fortune. Amanda. I resigned, I said, my tone mild as I traced the skyline. She laughed, sharp and dismissive. Right, because people quit six-figure consulting jobs in this economy. God, you're pathetic. Can't even admit you failed. If only she knew. Morris and Associates was a convenient mask, a way to keep my family believing I was ordinary while I orchestrated deals that shifted markets. My empire was invisible to them, exactly as I designed. Amanda's voice cut through again, oblivious to the irony. Well, don't expect sympathy at my engagement party next month. I won't have you embarrassing me in front of Jonathan's family. They're successful. Unlike some people, Jonathan Williams, her fiancé, is a rising star at Peterson Global, my company. The coincidence was almost poetic. I wouldn't dream of embarrassing you, I replied softly, my fingers brushing the cuff of my Tom Ford suit. Worth more than her monthly salary. Good, she snapped, and dressed properly for once. No discount store suits. Jonathan's father is bringing the CEO of Peterson Global. Try not to look like a family failure. I glanced at my suit, its fabric a silent retort. I'll do my best, I said, the words a velvet promise. After she hung up, I leaned against the window, the city's pulse thrumming below. For 12 years, I'd woven a tapestry of misdirection, letting my family see a struggling Abigail while I amassed billions. It began with an algorithm in college, a spark that grew into a firestorm of wealth. Now, Amanda's engagement party loomed, a stage where the truth might finally unfurl, Jonathan reported to me, though he'd never met the reclusive chairman Peterson. As the sun dipped, casting gold across my office, I wondered if the time had come to step from the shadows. The game was shifting, and I held the winning piece. The Manhattan skyline glittered like a promise kept, each light a testament to the empire I'd built in secret. I controlled Peterson Global Investments, a colossus managing $180 billion in assets. Yet my family saw only a faltering silhouette. The path to this moment began 12 years ago, in a cramped college dorm where I coded an algorithm that predicted market trends with uncanny precision. While Amanda partied through business school, I was raising capital, forging connections, and laying the foundation for something extraordinary. By 24, I'd earned my first billion through strategic trades, and by 26, I'd acquired Peterson Global through a labyrinth of shell companies. Not even the board knew the chairman's true identity, just a signature that delivered results. I kept the facade of ordinary jobs, each resignation a calculated step to maintain my anonymity. Why? Because I craved success, untainted by family expectations. a victory earned on merit alone. Amanda's dismissal of my early work had been the spark. Cute that you think you can compete with real business people, she'd said, tossing her hair as I showed her my market predictions. That day, I vowed to build in secret, free from her mockery and our parents' comparisons. Their voices echoed through years of family dinners, praising Amanda's promotions while lamenting my instability. I let them believe I was scraping by, taking jobs at firms like Morris and Associates to deflect scrutiny. It was easier, no demands. No cousins pitching half-baked ventures. No pressure to leverage my name. But now, as I stood in my office, the weight of that double life pressed against me. Amanda's engagement party was a chance to unveil the truth. And the irony was delicious. Her fiancé, Jonathan, was my employee. My phone buzzed. Jonathan's name flashing. Sir, ma'am, he stammered, his voice taut with nerves. I just found out. My fiancée, Amanda. She's your sister. I allowed a small smile, leaning back in my leather chair. Indeed. Jonathan, quite a coincidence, isn't it? He exhaled shakily. I had no idea. She talks about you, but she doesn't know. That's because she doesn't. I cut in. None of my family does. Keep it that way until the party. Of course. Ma'am, he said, his relief palpable. I hung up, picturing his panic. Jonathan was competent, but he'd never met the chairman in person. The party would be his first glimpse and Amanda's last moment of smugness. In the weeks that followed, I watched Amanda's preparations from afar. She planned an extravagant affair, every detail a testament to her need to shine. Our parents called often, their voices laced with familiar disappointment. Your sister's fiancé is so successful, Mom said during one call, her tone heavy. Maybe he can help you find something stable. I stifled a laugh. Jonathan's career depended on my goodwill. His bonuses were signed with my pen. I'll keep that in mind, I said neutrally, my fingers tracing the edge of a $10 Brioni suit in my closet. The morning of the party, I stood before my wardrobe, the city crisp outside my window. I chose a midnight blue bespoke suit, its lines sharp as my intent, the Patek Philippe watch on my wrist, worth more than Amanda's car, gleamed as I adjusted it. This evening would unravel 12 years of carefully spun lies. Part of me would miss the simplicity of anonymity, the quiet freedom of being underestimated. But Amanda's years of condescension, her jabs at my discount store suits, her theatrical sighs at my failures had built a fire I could no longer contain. The restaurant's marble floors and chandeliers awaited, a stage for truth. As I stepped into the elevator, Manhattan's skyline fading behind me, I felt the weight of every choice that led here. The game was no longer about secrecy, it was about revelation, and I was ready to play my hand. The Manhattan restaurant shimmered under chandeliers, its marble floors reflecting the glitter of high society like a polished mirror. I stepped through the entrance, the weight of my bespoke Brioni suit a silent armor against the evening's inevitable storm. Amanda held court near a grand staircase, resplendent in a designer gown, her laughter slicing through the hum of conversation. Jonathan hovered at her side, his eyes darting nervously as he spotted me. Oh, look who showed up, Amanda announced, her voice a theatrical drawl as she swept toward me, her guests trailing like courtiers and wearing something from Men's Warehouse. How fitting for the family failure. Her friends tittered, their champagne flutes catching the light. I smiled, the curve of my lips a blade honed by years of restraint, and let her words hang in the air like a dare. Congratulations, Amanda, I said calmly, my gaze steady as I nodded to Jonathan. He looked as if he might bolt, his tie slightly askew. Jonathan, I added, my tone a quiet command. He mumbled a greeting. Unable to meet my eyes, Amanda pressed her advantage, eager to parade my supposed ruin before her glittering audience. Still unemployed? Abigail, she asked, her smile venomous. I heard Morris and Associates finally tired of carrying dead weight. The crowd leaned in, sensing blood. Among them, I glimpsed Peterson Global executives, men and women who knew my signature, my decisions, my power. Their faces were masks of fascination, some bordering on horror, as they watched the scene unfold. Something like that? I replied, my voice a velvet thread weaving through her barbs. Then it happened. Richard Blackwood, a silver-haired board member with a penchant for bluntness, approached, his stride purposeful. "Chairman Peterson," he said, his voice cutting through the chatter like a gavel. "I had no idea you'd be here." The room froze. Amanda's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble with a crystalline scream. Jonathan's face drained of color, his hands trembling. Whispers erupted, a tide of shock rippling through the guests. My parents, standing near a floral arrangement, stared as if the ground had shifted beneath them. I turned to Richard, my smile deliberate. "Good to see you, Richard. It's been too long." The words were a signal, a curtain rising on the truth I'd guarded for over a decade. Amanda's eyes darted between us, her composure fracturing. "Chairman," she stammered, her voice a brittle thread. "What is he talking about?" Jonathan opened his mouth, but no sound emerged. His panic a palpable weight. I raised a hand, silencing him. "I think I should explain," I said, addressing the room. My voice carried, steady and unyielding. "For those unaware, I'm Abigail Peterson, chairman and majority owner of Peterson Global Investments." The whispers grew into a low roar. My mother gripped my father's arm, her knuckles white. My father's jaw hung slack, his glass tilting dangerously. Executives nodded subtly, their respect a quiet undercurrent amidst the chaos. "That's impossible." Amanda snapped, her earrings glinting as she shook her head. "You're unemployed. You just got fired. Resigned." I corrected, my tone as smooth as the marble beneath us. "One of several cover jobs I've held. Keeps life interesting." I glanced at Jonathan, who sagged with relief as I added, "You can relax." "Jonathan, I won't fire you just because you're marrying my sister." Amanda's head whipped toward him, betrayal flashing in her eyes. "Fire him. You can't fire him. You're lying." Richard stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Miss Peterson, I'm Richard Blackwood, head of our board. I assure you, your sister has been our chairman for years. This is the first time many of us have met her in person." Amanda's face crumpled, her carefully crafted superiority dissolving like mist. The room held its breath, and I stood at its center, the architect of a truth that had finally broken free. The private dining room was a sanctuary of muted elegance, its oak panels absorbing the echoes of the party's chaos. I led my family inside, the door closing with a soft thud that felt like a verdict. Amanda stood rigid, her designer gown suddenly too bright against her pallor. My parents followed, their steps hesitant, as if the ground might betray them again. I sat at the head of a polished table, adjusting my cuffs with deliberate calm, while the weight of their stares pressed against me. "How is this possible?" my father choked out, his voice raw. Amanda's eyes burned, her hands twisting her engagement ring. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother added, her voice trembling with a hurt I hadn't anticipated. The air was thick with questions, and I knew this moment would define our future. "It's quite simple," I began, leaning back, my gaze steady. "In college, I built a tool that changed everything, a system to predict markets. While you celebrated Amanda's internships, I was trading, building capital, making moves no one saw." I paused, letting the words settle. By 22, I had my first billion. Today, my net worth is $12 billion, and Peterson Global manages $180 billion in assets. My father's breath caught, a sound like a door creaking open. Amanda sank into a chair, her posture crumbling, But the fake jobs, she whispered. Why let us think you were failing? I studied her. The sister who'd once been my confidant before rivalry tore us apart. Do you recall mocking my early work? I asked. My voice level. You said it was quaint. That I'd never match real business minds. That was the day I chose silence. My mother's eyes glistened. Her hands clasped tightly. We worried about you. Abigail, every job you lost. We thought you thought I was lost. I finished, the truth sharp between us. But those jobs were deliberate. They kept you from asking questions, from expecting favors, from using my success to prop up your own. My father flinched, perhaps recalling how he'd leveraged Amanda's contacts for his consulting firm. You compared me to Amanda endlessly. I continued, my voice steady but laced with years of suppressed weight. Her promotions, her stability, every dinner was a tally of my shortcomings. So I built something untouchable. Where your judgments couldn't reach, Amanda's voice broke through. Small and fractured. All those times I called you a failure. You were signing Jonathan's paychecks. Her laugh was bitter. Self-directed. I was so cruel. Abigail, I didn't know. I nodded. The admission a crack in the wall between us. You didn't. I said softly. None of you did. I wanted it that way. No pressure. No expectations. Just my work and the market. My mother stepped forward, her voice shaking. But the pain it caused us. Thinking you were struggling, was that worth it? The question stung. A mirror to my doubts. I'm sorry for the hurt, I said, meeting her gaze. But not for building this my way. I needed to prove I could stand alone. A knock interrupted. Jonathan's hesitant face appearing. The board members are asking. Of course, I said. Rising, we should rejoin the party. There's an engagement to celebrate. I paused at the door. Turning to Amanda. That suit you mocked, it's Brioni. Worth more than your car. Her eyes widened. A flicker of something like respect crossing her face. As we stepped back into the restaurant's glow, I felt the weight of truth settle. No longer a secret, but a bridge or a chasm between us. The night was far from over, and the pieces of our fractured family were only beginning to realign. The restaurant's chandeliers dimmed as the engagement party wound down, but the aftershocks of my revelation rippled far beyond its marble halls. Within days, the story of Peterson Global's elusive chairman unmasking herself at her sister's celebration splashed across the Wall Street Journal. Our family's stunned faces frozen in a grainy photo. My phone became a relentless chorus of notifications, distant cousins with sudden nostalgia. High school acquaintances pitching ventures. Even my third-grade teacher claiming credit for my ascent. I silenced them all, focusing instead on the quieter, more profound shifts within my family. The truth, once a carefully guarded fortress, was now a lens reshaping every bond, and I navigated its fallout with a mix of resolve and curiosity. My father invited me to lunch at his favorite Manhattan diner, a place where he'd once lectured me on fiscal prudence. I always knew you had it in you, he said, his voice thick with pride as he sliced into a Reuben sandwich. The shift was jarring, a stark contrast to his Christmas critique of my aimless career. Really, I asked, stirring my coffee, the steam curling like a question. Because you once called my path a waste of Ivy League tuition. He flushed, his fork pausing. I was wrong, seeing you bounce between jobs. You thought I was floundering. I said, not unkindly, those roles were my shield. Dad, they kept my real work invisible. He nodded, chastened, and I saw a flicker of respect replace his old disappointment. My mother's approach was different, raw and unfiltered. She appeared unannounced at my office, bypassing security with a charm I hadn't anticipated. The panoramic view of Manhattan stretched before us, a silent witness to her trembling voice. All those nights I worried you'd never find your way, she said, her eyes tracing the skyline. And you were here, building this. Her hurt was palpable. a wound I hadn't meant to inflict. I needed to do it alone, I said, my voice soft but firm. To know my success was mine, not a family favor. She studied me, then squared her shoulders. No more facades. Abigail, I want my daughter at Sunday dinners. Not a shadow. I smiled. A promise forming. You'll have me. Mom, the real me. Amanda's transformation was the most unexpected. She texted me to meet at a modest coffee shop, far from her usual haunts. Her latte sat untouched as she spoke. Her voice stripped of its former edge. I was terrified of falling short. She admitted, her fingers tracing the cup's rim. Pushing you down made me feel taller. And now, knowing what you've done, she shook her head, a rueful smile breaking through. I'm sorry, Abigail, for all of it. Her sincerity disarmed me, rekindling memories of our childhood closeness. We both played roles. I said, maybe now we can stop. She nodded, and I saw a path forward. Fragile, but real. I took steps to mend what I'd neglected. I launched a family foundation, not for handouts, but to fund vetted entrepreneurial ideas. With Mom proving a shrewd board member, my father's consulting firm secured major contracts opportunities I quietly facilitated, letting his work earn the spotlight. Amanda and Jonathan scaled back their wedding's extravagance, choosing intimacy over ostentation. Enough showing off, Amanda told me, her eyes bright with purpose. Jonathan thrived at Peterson Global, his confidence bolstered by our new transparency. As the press moved on and the flood of opportunists dwindled, I felt the contours of a new normal emerging, one where truth, not secrecy, defined us. 6 months later, our family gathered around a worn oak table in my parents' Manhattan brownstone, the air warm with laughter and the clink of wine glasses. No pretense clouded the evening. No hidden agendas lurked beneath the surface. Amanda, her engagement ring catching the candlelight, teased me about my Men's Warehouse suit, now a shared joke that drew chuckles from everyone. Next time, I'll wear one just for you, I quipped. And her grin was the kind we'd traded as kids, unburdened by rivalry. The moment felt like a tapestry rewoven, each thread of our past misunderstandings, judgments, and silences stitched into something stronger. I leaned back, savoring the rarity of a family seeing each other. That night, alone in my office, I stood at the window, Manhattan's lights pulsing like a living map of my choices. The years of calculated obscurity had built an empire, but they'd also carved wounds I hadn't foreseen. My mother's sleepless nights, Amanda's misplaced scorn, my father's misguided lectures. Had the secrecy been worth it? The question lingered, but the answer lay in the dinner we'd just shared, in Amanda's softened gaze, in my parents' pride tempered by humility. The truth hadn't just exposed my wealth, it had dismantled walls, forcing us to confront our flaws and rebuild. I'd proven my worth to myself, but the real victory was this fragile, honest connection. I pulled out my phone and texted Amanda dinner next week. My treat. Her reply came swiftly. Only if you wear that discount suit for old time's sake. I laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet office. Some patterns had shifted entirely, others merely transformed. But now we were all in on the jest, and that was enough. The city below hummed with possibility. No longer a chessboard for my solitary game, but a canvas for what came next. I thought of the foundation, its first grants sparking dreams, and of Jonathan's latest project, fueled by a confidence I'd helped unlock. Even my father's firm, thriving on its merit, bore traces of my invisible hand. Success, I realized, wasn't the billions in my accounts or the power of my signature. It was the courage to stand alone, to carve a path through doubt, and to emerge not with vengeance, but with growth. The hardest lessons, wrapped in the costliest packages, had taught me that. Amanda's apology, my mother's demand for presence, my father's newfound respect. They were not trophies, but mirrors, reflecting a family remade, I turned from the window. The skyline a quiet companion to my thoughts. The walls I'd built had crumbled, and in their place stood something enduring. Whatever lay ahead, new ventures, deeper bonds, or unforeseen storms, I was no longer a shadow. I was Abigail, fully seen, and that was the truest empire of all. If you had asked me how I envisioned my daughter's college graduation day, I would have painted a picture of laughter, pride, and champagne toasts under the soft glow of chandeliers. Never, in my wildest nightmares, would I have imagined my husband of 26 years standing up to shatter my world in front of everyone we loved. Yet, on that balmy June evening in 2025, in the heart of Savannah's historic district, that's exactly what happened. My name is Kaylee Thompson. I'm 45 years old. And this is the story of how I turned betrayal into a triumph no one saw coming. The private room of La Belle Époque, an upscale French restaurant, buzzed with celebration. 50 guests, friends, family, neighbors filled the space, their voices mingling with the clink of glassware and the scent of lavender from the table centerpieces. I sat beside my daughter, Sophia, my heart swelling as I watched her laugh. Her graduation cap still perched playfully on her head, her pale blue dress, chosen during a giddy shopping trip just last week, caught the light like a promise of bright futures. Sophia, my only child, was the center of my universe, her smile a beacon that made every sacrifice worthwhile. Across from us, my husband, Chase, chatted animatedly, his charm as effortless as ever. For 26 years, I had been his partner, his confidant, the woman who gave up her career to nurture his dreams. That night, I thought we were celebrating as a family, united. Then Chase stood, raising his champagne glass. The room hushed, all eyes on him, expecting a proud father's toast to Sophia. Instead, his words sliced through the air like a blade. "I've decided to start a new life without Kaylee," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes avoiding mine. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Silverware clattered to a stop. Someone behind me whispered. What? Sophia's hand froze on her glass, her wide eyes darting to me. I felt the weight of every gaze, waiting for me to crumble, to scream, to give them the spectacle they expected. But I didn't. Something inside me, forged through years of quiet strength, held firm. I smiled, a calm, deliberate smile that made Chase falter, his glass trembling in his hand. Slowly, I placed my napkin on the table, stood, and reached into my purse. From it, I pulled a cream-colored envelope, its edges crisp against my fingers. "This is a gift for you," I said, my voice clear and steady, loud enough for every guest to hear. I said it before Chase as casually as if it were the dinner check, his brow furrowed. But he didn't dare open it, not yet. The room was a tableau of stunned faces, familiar friends who had once shared our Christmas dinners now staring as if I were a stranger. I leaned down, kissed Sophia's forehead, and whispered, "I'm proud of you. Today is your day. Don't let anyone steal it." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she nodded, clutching my hand, straightening. I faced the crowd. "Please, everyone, enjoy the rest of the party. Have a wonderful evening." My heels clicked against the marble floor as I walked out, each step echoing like a gavel in a silent courtroom. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see their faces to know they watched, mouths agape, as I left Chase standing alone with his trembling glass and my envelope. Outside, the June heat of Georgia enveloped me, thick and humid, but it felt like a baptism. I was alive, still standing, and something new was stirring within me, a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. Behind me, the restaurant door crashed open, and Chase's voice, no longer confident but frantic, called, "Kaylee, what are you doing?" I kept walking, my lips curving into a cold smile he'd never seen before. In my purse, a second envelope waited, its contents the key to my freedom. That night, I wasn't just leaving a party. I was stepping into a future where betrayal would no longer define me. It was a bitterly cold January evening, 5 months before Sophia's graduation. When the first crack appeared in the facade of my marriage, I sat at our dining table in Savannah, a steaming mug of tea beside me. Sifting through the family's year-end bills, Chase wasn't home again, claiming a client meeting in Hilton Head, 30 miles away. The routine was familiar. But that night, a small charge on our bank statement caught my eye, $500 at an Atlanta jewelry store. My heart sank. Chase never wore jewelry, and the last gift he'd given me was a scarf 3 Christmases ago. A chill unrelated to the winter air settled in my chest. Whispering doubts I'd ignored for too long, I began paying closer attention. More charges surfaced: $200 dinners at restaurants I'd never visited, $300 hotel bills in cities Chase never mentioned, a $600 flight to Miami. Each discovery was a pebble in a growing pile, heavy with suspicion. Then, one evening, I found Chase's iPad on the sofa, its screen still lit. A conversation glowed at the top. The name Lauren in bold. Messages promised a new life, a beach house, nights alone together, a future without me. Lauren, the young woman who'd called me sis at our summer barbecues. Her laughter once so disarming. My hands shook as I closed the iPad, but my mind sharpened, clear as a winter sky. If Chase thought I'd fade quietly, he'd underestimated the woman he married. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or accuse. Instead, I became a silent collector of truths. Every night, after Chase left for his meetings, I pored over bank statements, emails, and receipts, backing everything to a private hard drive. I noted dates, amounts, details, each a thread in the tapestry of his betrayal. The next week, I met Charlotte Reynolds, a divorce attorney I'd known from a finance seminar years ago. In her sunlit office, I laid out my findings, the charges, the messages, my gut's unyielding certainty. Charlotte's sharp eyes scanned my notes, and she nodded before I finished. "We need the prenup," she said. I retrieved it from our home safe, a document Chase had insisted on when I had more assets than he did. Clause 14 was our shield if either party committed adultery. The other would retain the majority of marital assets, $2 million in our case, including the house, retirement accounts, and investments. Charlotte advised discretion. So I hired Jason, a private investigator and childhood friend of my brother. Within days, he delivered photos of Chase and Lauren at a beach resort 100 miles away, their hands entwined, checked in under false names. The images burned, but they also steeled my resolve. I treated every move like a chess game, methodical and precise. For 3 months, I gathered evidence while Chase played the devoted husband dinners with Sophia. Sweet talk of retirement dreams. He had no idea I was building a case that would unravel his world. Each lie he told, each glance away, only sharpened my focus. I wasn't just preparing to leave him, I was ensuring he'd feel the weight of his betrayal. By the time Sophia's graduation approached, I was ready. The cream-colored envelope in my purse, a testament to my patience and power. Chase thought he could rewrite our story, but I was holding the pen, and my ending would be one of justice. As I stepped into the sultry Savannah night, the restaurant's heavy door slammed shut behind me, a final punctuation to the life I'd known. Chase's frantic shout, "Kaylee, what are you doing?" chased me down the stone steps. But I didn't falter. My heels struck the pavement with purpose, each click a reminder of the second envelope in my purse. Its weight a promise of justice. The June air clung to my skin, but it couldn't touch the fire kindling within me. I was no longer the woman who'd waited patiently for Chase's late-night returns. I was a force, unshackled, and he was about to learn what that meant. Chase's footsteps pounded closer, his voice cracking with desperation. "Kaylee, Stop, you can't do this. I paused at the corner, beneath the flickering glow of a street lamp, and turned to face him. He clutched the cream-colored envelope I'd left on the banquet table, his face a mask of panic. "What the hell is this?" he roared, waving it like a flag of surrender. I tilted my head, my voice as cool as the breeze rustling the live oaks. "Just giving you what you've worked so hard for." He tore open the envelope, yanking out the papers. His eyes scanned the first line's divorce petition, evidence of infidelity, and his face drained of color. "How did you get this?" he whispered, hands trembling. I crossed my arms. Sometimes, all it takes is one person being careless and another being patient. Chase's bravado crumbled. "The prenup expired years ago," he stammered. But my smile sharpened. "You should have read it closer. Clause 14 holds through the marriage. You insisted on it. Remember, worried about your assets. Now it protects me." His gaze dropped to the papers, a corner crumpling in his fist. "What do I lose?" he choked out. I savored the moment, my words deliberate. "The house, $800. Your share of our $1. 2 million retirement accounts. 70% of our $1.5 million investments. Oh, and that secret $50 account you thought I didn't know about frozen." Chase stumbled back, as if the ground had shifted. Lauren and I had plans: a new house, a new life. My laugh was sharp, cutting through the humid air. "Your new life starts in a rented apartment with a frozen bank account." I turned, hailing a taxi that idled nearby. As I slid into the back seat, Chase stood frozen, the crumpled envelope his only companion. The car pulled away, and through the window, I saw him shrink into the night. A man unmoored. I directed the driver to Deanna's house, Chase's sister, 5 miles across town. Her pale blue cottage, nestled under ancient oaks, was a sanctuary. Deanna greeted me on the porch, her embrace wordless but fierce. Inside, we sipped mint tea, the quiet a balm after the storm, but the calm was shattered when the doorbell rang. Urgent and insistent, Deanna's eyes met mine, and she rose to answer. Chase stormed in, Lauren trailing behind, her blonde curls wilting in the tension. His voice was strained with forced control. "Kaylee, we need to talk." I stayed seated, my cup steady in my hands. "We've talked enough." Before he could respond, Sophia burst through the back door, still in her Navy graduation dress, dirt dusting her heels from a night with friends. Her eyes blazed at the sight of Chase. "What are you doing here?" "Dad?" she demanded, her voice a whip. Chase stepped forward, palms raised. "I just want to explain." Sophia cut him off, her words venomous. "Explain how you ruined my graduation, or how you betrayed Mom and thought you could walk away with everything." Lauren shifted, her voice trembling. "Chase, you said the money for our apartment was transferred. I called the bank. It's frozen." Her eyes widened, realization dawning. It was all lies. Chase turned away, silent. And in that moment, Lauren's dream of a new life shattered. She whispered, "I was such a fool," and fled, the door slamming behind her. Sophia turned to Chase, her voice low with sorrow. "You chose betrayal on my biggest day. Don't call yourself my father to excuse it." She pointed to the door. "Leave." Chase hesitated, then nodded, his shoulders sagging as he walked out. Deanna squeezed my shoulder, and Sophia sank beside me, her head resting against me as if she were small. In the silence, we were a family, unbroken by his choices. The Chatham County Courthouse loomed under a heavy gray sky, its brick facade as unyielding as the battle awaiting me inside. 2 weeks after the graduation, I stepped into the courtroom with Charlotte Reynolds, my silver-haired attorney whose steady gaze could silence any opponent. The air was thick with anticipation, the wooden benches creaking under the weight of whispered expectations. Across the room, Chase sat, his suit ill-fitting, Flanked by a young lawyer clutching a stack of files like a lifeline, he avoided my eyes, fidgeting with his watch. A shadow of the man who'd once commanded every room, the judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense air, called for opening statements. Charlotte rose, her voice crisp as she laid out our case, the prenup's fidelity clause, unbroken through 26 years, entitled me to the majority of our $3.5 million in assets. She presented my evidence transaction records, photographs, messages, each a nail in Chase's defense. His lawyer, barely out of law school, stammered, "Your Honor, the prenup expired due to lack of renewal terms." The judge's eyebrow arched as she flipped through the file. Clause 17 states the agreement remains valid through the marriage and dissolution. No expiration. She snapped the file shut, the sound echoing like a verdict. The courtroom held its breath as she continued. The plaintiff has shown sufficient evidence of infidelity. Marital assets will remain frozen. Mrs. Thompson shall have temporary exclusive use of the $800 marital home. The defendant's access is limited to $5 for essential expenses. Chase slumped, his lawyer's objections silenced by the judge's raised hand. I've reviewed the financial misconduct evidence. This protects the plaintiff from further loss. Charlotte's faint smile told me she'd anticipated every move. The hearing adjourned, the trial set for 60 days later. As I gathered my papers, Chase's hesitant footsteps followed me into the empty hallway. "Kaylee, please," he croaked, his voice raw. "We loved each other once." I turned, meeting eyes that had once promised forever, now clouded with regret. "I loved you, Chase. But I love myself too. That love doesn't forgive betrayal." My words were calm, free of venom, a statement of truth. He opened his mouth, searching for a defense, but found none. His shoulders sagged, and I walked away. The click of my heels on the polished floor, a steady rhythm of closure. Outside, a soft rain fell, washing the cobblestone streets clean, as if erasing the remnants of a life I'd outgrown. The legal battle was far from over, but in that moment, I felt the first stirrings of a future where I defined my worth. The courthouse rain lingered in my mind as I drove back to Savannah's historic district, the cobblestone streets glistening under the dawn of a new chapter. The preliminary hearing had secured my foothold, but it was the quiet moments afterward that reshaped my life. No longer tethered to Chase's betrayal, I sought a purpose that was mine alone. I enrolled in a 6-week financial counseling course at a local university, each lecture rekindling skills I'd set aside for marriage. The classroom, with its creaky desks and chalk-dusted air, became a sanctuary where I rediscovered my voice. By late summer, I leased a small office overlooking a sunlit park, its large windows framing a future I could shape. A simple sign went up: Kaylee Thompson Financial Transitions. It wasn't just a business, it was a vow to help women navigate the storms I'd weathered. My first client, a widow clutching a tissue, confessed her fear of managing finances alone after decades of marriage. "We'll start where you are," I told her, my hand resting on her file. "And you won't walk alone." Word spread like wildfire. Divorced women, single mothers, career changers, clients came from within a 50-mile radius, their stories echoing my own. Within months, I hired an assistant, then a partner, to keep pace with the demand. The office hummed with purpose, its walls absorbing tears and laughter alike. I was no longer the woman who'd once waited for Chase's approval. I was a beacon for others, proof that broken foundations could bear new dreams. While I built, Chase crumbled, his company, once his pride, folded under bad investments. Its office, marked by a for-lease sign, friends who'd toasted his success vanished, leaving him to nurse his regrets in a rented apartment he could barely afford. I heard whispers that Lauren had moved on, unwilling to tether herself to a man with nothing but empty promises. Sophia, now thriving in Charleston, 120 miles away, visited often, her weekends filled with stories of her new job. One evening, as we sat on my porch, the air thick with jasmine, she hugged me tightly. "You're my hero." "Mom," she said, her voice soft but sure, "not for surviving, but for building something beautiful from the wreckage." Her words settled deep, a treasure no wealth could rival. One afternoon, sorting through office files, I found a faded photo, me, Chase, and Sophia. Laughing in our backyard years ago, I traced its edges, feeling no anger, only a quiet peace. The woman in that photo had loved fiercely, but the woman I'd become loved herself, too. I tucked the photo away, not as a relic of loss, but as a marker of how far I'd come. The park outside my window bloomed with late summer roses, their petals a reminder that growth follows even the harshest pruning. Chase's world had withered, but mine was in full bloom, rooted in a strength I'd forged alone. The early fall morning of the final trial dawned cool and crisp. Savannah's oaks casting long shadows over the courthouse, I entered with Charlotte, my light gray dress a quiet armor, my heart steady with resolve. Across the courtroom, Chase sat, his frame gaunt, his new lawyer a seasoned man with a grim expression flipping through papers. The judge, her sharp eyes unchanged from the preliminary hearing, opened the case with a brisk announcement. Charlotte stood, her voice ablaze as she presented our evidence, hidden accounts, misused funds, a trail of deceit spanning years. My testimony followed, each word measured yet fierce. I poured 26 years into our family, I said, my gaze sweeping the room. I managed our home, raised our daughter, and shouldered every burden Chase neglected. Today, I claim what I've earned, not for revenge, but for justice. Chase's lawyer offered little defense, mumbling about shared history. But the judge's verdict was swift, given the clear breach of the prenup. Mrs. Gack Thompson is awarded the $800 Sir home, her $2 million retirement accounts, and 70% of the $1.5 million joint assets. Mr. Coleman Monroe retains 10 and personal property. The gavel fell, and Chase remained motionless, his fists clenched, as if grasping at a life already gone. I exhaled, not in triumph, but in release, the weight of betrayal lifting like mist off the Savannah River. Weeks later, as I finalized paperwork in my bustling office, my phone rang. Chase's name flashed, and I let it hum before answering. His voice was hoarse, broken. "I ruined everything, Sophia. You and me. I have nothing but regret." I leaned back, the golden sunset painting the street outside. "I know," I said, my tone even, untouched by pain. He pleaded, "Is there any chance for us I'll change?" I looked out at the swirling autumn leaves, my answer clear. "That door's closed. Chase, I'm not waiting to open it." His silence carried the weight of finality. "You deserve better," he whispered. And I hung up, my heart unrippled. The old story sealed shut. My business soared, forcing a move to a larger space downtown. Clients, women battered by life's twists, found hope in my office, their dreams taking root under my guidance. I launched free workshops for post-divorce financial planning, determined to be the voice I'd once needed. On a weekend escape to Asheville, 200 miles away, I stood on a balcony overlooking hills ablaze with red and gold. Happiness, I realized, wasn't a family kept intact at all costs. It was choosing myself, even when it meant letting old dreams burn. Sophia's words echoed. "You turned loss into strength." They were my North Star, guiding me forward as I drafted plans for my workshops. The autumn light danced across my desk, a silent vow that my story wasn't just mine. It belonged to every woman who'd ever stood at a crossroads, unsure but unbroken. My journey from betrayal to this vibrant, unyielding life proved that loss is not the end, but the seed of a freer dawn. What would you do in my place? Walk away or forgive? Share your thoughts below. And join me for more stories of courage and renewal. What does it mean to be family when the ones you love cast you out on the holiest night of the year? I'm Paisley, 28, and I never thought I'd find myself staring into the abyss of that question, fork frozen midair. As my father's words sliced through the Christmas Eve silence, my life in our small Ohio house was no fairy tale, but I believed my sacrifices, every dollar. Every overtime shift kept us tethered. That night, as the scent of ham and betrayal hung heavy, I learned how wrong I was, and the unraveling began. It was December 24th, 2024, and I trudged home from my insurance job, my thick coat dusted with snow, coffee clinging to my sleeves, our house on the outskirts of Toledo squatted under a gray sky, its sagging porch barely holding up a string of flickering Christmas lights from years past. Inside, the warmth was fleeting, the heater wheezing from my latest $200 payment. My mother, Diane, fussed over a plate of ham, her hands trembling slightly. My father, Harold, sat at the table's head, clutching a wine glass, his gaze lost in the ceiling light's dim glow. My brother, Tyler, 17, flashed me a faint smile as I scooped mashed potatoes onto my plate. The kitchen radio hummed a tinny carol, but the air was thick with unspoken tension. Dinner started in silence, silverware clinking like a countdown. I was about to ask Tyler about school when Harold slammed his knife down, the sharp clang jolting me. "Paisley," he said, eyes locking onto mine. "You're a burden. You can't live here anymore." The words landed like a physical blow. I froze. My breath caught. Diane let out a dry, panicked laugh, as if it were a cruel jest. But Harold's stare was unyielding. Tyler's fork hovered, a piece of chicken dangling, his wide eyes darting between us. The room felt like it had iced over, the carol now a mocking whisper. "What did you just say?" I managed, my voice barely steady. "You heard me," Harold growled, low and final. "This is my house. You've stayed long enough. Enough is enough." I couldn't speak. I wasn't here out of need. I could afford an apartment, a life of my own. I stayed because they leaned on me. Harold lost his job 3 years ago, and Diane's part-time library gig barely covered groceries. My paychecks kept the lights on, the water running. Now, on Christmas Eve, I was a freeloader. Diane opened her mouth, but Harold cut her off. "I've made my decision," Tyler's voice cracked. "If they can kick her out, who's next?" I took a deep breath, refusing to let the moment break me. "All right," I said, my tone even. Harold smirked, as if he'd won. Diane stared at her plate, silent. I rose, carrying my half-eaten meal to the sink, the clatter of dishes louder than my heartbeat. I gave Tyler a small nod. He was the only one I'd miss. No one spoke as I climbed the stairs, the creaky hinges of my bedroom door sounding like a final goodbye. I didn't beg or cry. They wanted me gone, and I'd go. But they'd soon learn the cost of their choice. That night, I began to rewrite my story, one they'd never control again. The weight of betrayal didn't crush me. It sharpened my resolve. As I stood in my childhood bedroom, the walls, once a refuge, now felt like a cage I was ready to escape. And on that Christmas Eve, with the Ohio wind howling outside, I packed my life into a suitcase, not out of defeat, but with a quiet promise if my family saw me as expendable, they'd face the void I'd leave behind. By dawn, I'd sever the lifelines I'd tethered to their world, and the silence of my departure would scream louder than any argument. After Harold's ultimatum, I moved with purpose. My bedroom, lit by a single bulb, held traces of my sacrifices, receipts for utility bills tucked in drawers, a notebook listing overtime hours that paid for the $50 monthly water bill. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed, its wheels scraping the hardwood, and began folding clothes, sweaters bought with bonuses, jeans worn thin from double shifts. Every item was a reminder of what I'd given $200 for the heater last winter, $100 for internet, and Tyler needed for school. I didn't cry. Tears were for those who begged to stay. And I was done pleading. The suitcase zipped shut. Heavy with more than clothes, it carried my reclaimed freedom. A soft knock broke the stillness. Paisley Tyler's voice was a whisper, fragile against the night's weight. I opened the door, and he stepped in. Shoulders hunched, eyes red but dry. "Are you leaving?" he asked. Glancing at the barren room, "They said it, didn't they?" I replied, my voice steady. "I have no reason to stay." He sat on the bed, his hands twisting. "But who's going to pay for the electricity? The internet? They can't afford it." I paused, meeting his gaze. He wasn't naive. He knew I was the house's pulse. I can't be their wallet forever. "Ty," I said softly, "I deserve to breathe, too." He nodded, silent, then whispered, "I want to go with you." My heart ached, but I shook my head. "You're 17, still in school. They won't let you, but I'll text you every day, and I promise." He looked away, committing my words to memory. By midnight, the house was a tomb. The Christmas trees glow, mocking the darkness within. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, and logged into the utility accounts. Electricity, $150 a month. Internet, water. My name was tied to them all. With a few taps, I removed my banking details. Each click, a severance. No warnings, no notes. I'd warned them with my presence for years, and they'd ignored it. I wheeled my suitcase downstairs, the living room light seeping through a door crack. The TV droned. Harold and Diane watching their holiday show as if I'd never existed. I opened the front door, the freezing wind slapping my face, but I didn't flinch. I loaded my suitcase into my sedan's trunk, slid into the driver's seat, and drove 10 miles to Marissa's apartment. Marissa, my colleague and friend, opened her door without question, her hug warmer than any hearth. "Stay as long as you need," she said, leading me to her cozy living room, where a pull-out couch waited. As I sank into the cushions, exhaustion mingled with a strange relief. The house I'd propped up would go dark soon, literally and figuratively. I wasn't vengeful, but I was done being invisible. That Christmas night, I closed my eyes, not frozen by the Ohio cold, but awakened by a truth I'd been enabling their ingratitude. And now, 10 miles away, I was free to build a life that was mine alone. The real cost of their betrayal was theirs to bear, and I'd make sure they felt every ounce of it. In the days after I left that Ohio house, Marissa's apartment became my sanctuary, a 600-square-foot haven where I could exhale. But as I sipped coffee at her wooden table, my phone buzzed with the fallout of my departure, a storm of messages and alerts that revealed the truth as my family hadn't just taken me for granted. They'd built their lives on my sacrifice. And now, without it, they were spiraling into chaos. I wasn't gloating. I was waking up. And their desperation was the mirror reflecting my worth. The morning after Christmas, I sat with my laptop, the glow casting shadows across Marissa's living room. I logged into the utility portals, my fingers steady as I confirmed the severance of my support. The $15 monthly Amazon Prime account my mother used for her nightly movies canceled. The $75 gas bill that kept the stove running. My card was gone. Each click was a reclamation. Not of money, but of self. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and felt a rare peace. But by Wednesday, that peace was shattered. My phone vibrated relentlessly during my shift, stacking 5 missed calls from my mother, 2 from my father, and a text from Tyler Powers out, Dad screaming. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I'd carried their weight too long. An hour later, another message from my mother. The internet's down. TV's dead. What did you do?" Her words dripped with accusation, as if I'd betrayed them by refusing to fund their denial. I read it, my pulse steady, and tucked the phone away. They'd wanted me gone, hadn't they? Let them taste the darkness of their choice. That night, as Marissa and I chopped vegetables for dinner, my phone rang again. Instinct nudged me to answer. My mother's voice trembled, a mix of fear and confusion. "The house is dark. Paisley, no Netflix, no lights. Your father's losing it. What's happening?" I let the question hang, then spoke calmly. "Who do you think paid for all that?" 4 years. Mom. Me. Silence. Then, softly, almost guilty. But your father thought." I cut her off. "You believed him. Now live with it." I hung up, the knife in my hand still, my resolve sharper than its edge. The next day, an email from my bank jolted me. Suspicious login attempt, unfamiliar device. My stomach twisted. 3 failed logins. Then a password reset request. I knew who it was, my father. Clawing for control. I called Tyler. His voice low, tense. He's been on Mom's old notebook, the one with her passwords. Keeps muttering about getting what's his. I gripped the phone, thanking him, and sat at Marissa's table again. I changed every password bank, email, even the $10 food delivery app I rarely used. Each new code was a wall. A silent vow I was no longer theirs to plunder, but their desperation wasn't done with me. Tyler texted later, "The internet's gone for good. Mom cooked on the gas stove last night. Dad punched the fuse box." I set the phone down, took my deep breath. The house was unraveling. And this was just the beginning. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a lifeline. And I'd cut the rope. As I stared out Marissa's window at the snow-dusted Ohio streets, I knew their chaos was their own making, and I wouldn't let it pull me back. The question haunted me as I stood behind Marissa's locked door, the pounding of fists echoing like a war drum. In the weeks since I'd severed the family's lifelines, their desperation had morphed into something feral. And now, on a frigid Ohio morning, my father's rage had found me 10 miles from the house that no longer held my heart. I wasn't just fighting for freedom anymore, I was fighting for survival. And every choice I made was a brick in the fortress I was building around my new life. It started with a text from Tyler, 3 days after the bank alerts Dad's out on bail. Uncle Mark paid it. My pulse quickened. Mark, my father's old drinking buddy, wasn't just a savior, he was an enabler. And I knew trouble followed. That morning, as I stepped out of Marissa's bathroom, hair still dripping, she called from the living room, her voice tight. "Someone's banging on the door." I crept to the peephole, heart plummeting. My father stood in the hallway, fists hammering, eyes bloodshot, voice roaring, "Open up. You think you can walk away?" Marissa's face paled. "Police," I nodded, already dialing 911, my hands steady despite the tremor in my chest. "He's my father, but he's threatening me." I told the dispatcher, my voice clear. "He's trying to break in. They promised officers would arrive within 3 minutes." Through the peephole, I watched him pace, muttering, "Ungrateful." After everything I did, sirens wailed, and heavy boots thundered up the stairwell. A gentle knock. "Police, open up." I let them in, stepping aside as they faced my father. "Sir, you're disturbing the residents," one officer said, voice firm. "Leave now." My father's face flushed crimson. "She's my daughter. I have rights." The officer's tone stayed even. "Not like this. She called because she feels threatened." He lunged toward me, shouting, "You owe me." But the officers restrained him, handcuffs clicking shut. I stepped forward, locking eyes with him. "I owe you nothing. You pushed me out. Live with it." His hiss followed as they led him away. "You'll regret this." The door closed, and Marissa squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded, throat tight. I didn't think it had come to this, But the chaos didn't end there. 2 days later, Tyler texted your cars outside our house. I froze. My sedan was at Marissa's. 10 miles away. I called him. Heart racing. There's a coffee bag Mom uses inside. He said, windows down. Marissa confirmed my spare key was untouched, meaning they'd copied it. I drove her car to the old neighborhood, spotting my dark blue sedan, its plates glinting under a street lamp. Inside, a water bottle, unfamiliar shoes, and a $200 grocery receipt with my mother's name. I clenched my fists, staying calm, and rang the doorbell. My mother answered, clutching a purse, her face tightening. "Why are you here?" she asked. "You took my car," I said. Voice low, she scoffed, stepping aside. It was just sitting there. I borrowed it. I laughed, humorless. For a week, with whose gas and why's the seat reclined, like someone's sleeping in it. She turned away, silent, placing her purse on the table. I glanced at the living room. The $800 laptop I'd left on the bookshelf was gone. "Where's my laptop?" I demanded. She froze, then said evenly, "I sold it. For your father's medicine. This house needs things. No apology. No shame." I pulled out my phone. "Then you'll face the consequences." Her voice rose. Panicked. "I'm your mother." "Then why steal from me?" I shot back. I called 911, explaining the car, the receipt, and the GPS logs showing its movements. I wanted my property and charges filed. My mother argued, but without proof of ownership. She faltered. An officer turned to me. "File a theft report if you wish." I looked at her pale, shaking face. "I'm doing what you should have taught me, protecting what's mine." I drove my car back to Marissa's, but my father's release gnawed at me. I fortified my account's 16-character passwords. 2-step verification, $5 monthly security app. Marissa urged me to leave her place. His arrest hadn't stopped him. I called Nora, a co-worker who'd offered her spare room. "Come anytime." She said, that night. I packed essentials, my hands steady but my mind racing. My father thought he could break me, but I was no longer his to control. As I loaded my car, the Ohio stars above whispered a truth. This wasn't just escape, it was defiance. And I was ready for whatever came next. A week after my father's arrest and my mother's betrayal, I stood in Marissa's apartment, clutching my phone, its screen glowing with a threat that chilled my bones. "You think you've won?" The Ohio night outside was still, but inside, my world trembled. My father was free on bail, his rage now a blade sharpened by desperation. And I knew staying put was no longer an option. Every lock I'd set, every wall I'd built, was a step toward freedom. But freedom demanded one more move, a leap into the unknown to protect the life I was forging. The text arrived just hours after I'd reclaimed my stolen car and confronted my mother's theft. Tyler's call confirmed my fears. Uncle Mark bailed Dad out. I heard him on the phone, saying he'd make you feel what it's like to be pushed out. His voice was a whisper, strained by the weight of our father's vendetta. Marissa, stirring pasta in her kitchen, caught my pale expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, her spoon pausing midair. "He's out," I said, "and he's coming for me." Her eyes widened. "You can't stay here. Paisley, he's been here once. He'll come again." I nodded, the truth sinking in like cold rain. My father's arrest hadn't tamed him, it had unleashed him. And with nothing left to lose, he was a storm I couldn't weather in place. I called Nora, a co-worker whose offer of a spare room had lingered in my mind. "Bring your stuff tonight," she said, her voice a lifeline. I packed swiftly clothes, my new $500 laptop, documents leaving behind trinkets that no longer held meaning. Marissa helped load my sedan, her hands steady but her eyes worried. "I'll call the cops if anything weird happens," she promised, pressing a key into my palm. Before leaving, I installed a $300 security system, cameras, smart locks, a phone app blinking green with alerts. as I drove 15 miles to Nora's apartment. The Ohio skyline blurred, not from speed, but from the weight of what I was leaving behind. This wasn't running, it was choosing to live. At Nora's. I settled into a small room with a single window overlooking a quiet street, but peace was fleeting. Another text from an unknown number. You can't hide forever. Family is forever. My father's words. Dripping with menace. I screenshot it, forwarding it to the Toledo police with my updated report. Typing carefully, I am being threatened by the man who was once my father. I am not safe. The act felt like armor. Each word a shield. Days later, I returned to the old house under a civil standby order. A police officer at my side. Tyler waited on the porch, a backpack slung over his shoulder, his face etched with exhaustion. You sure about this? He asked. I nodded. I'm just taking what's mine. Inside. My mother sat on the sofa, clutching her purse like a lifeline. My father stood in the kitchen, his gaze a cold blade. I ignored them. Climbing to my old room, my belongings were stuffed into plastic bags. Books and photos scattered like debris. I packed them into my suitcase, each item a piece of a life I'd outgrown. Downstairs, my mother stood abruptly. Not even a word, you're just leaving. I paused, my voice flat. I spoke for years. You never listened. My father stepped forward, venom in his tone. You're tarnishing this family. I pulled a restraining order petition from my pocket. It's paper, crisp. One more message. One step near me. And this gets filed. Next time. It's not just a warning. The officer nodded. Noted. Any threats will be serious. I turned to Tyler. If it gets unbearable, call me. I'll come. He nodded. Our trust unspoken but ironclad. I left. The doors thud a final severing. My suitcase rolling toward a life no one could steal. 2 years after I walked away from that Ohio house, I found my answer not in blood, but in the quiet strength of my brother, Tyler, and the life we carved together. The threats had faded. The old house had fallen, and as I sat by a river with the sun painting the sky orange, I realized the true cost of freedom wasn't what I'd lost, but what I'd gained: a life unburdened, a brother unbound, and a peace no one could shatter. In December 2026, Tyler texted, I'm ready. He was 18. His voice no longer trembling. I drove 20 miles to the old house, its windows boarded, the yard choked with weeds. Tyler stood alone, his backpack light with clothes, books, and a framed photo of us from my college days. No one saw him off. The silence was louder than any farewell. I helped him enroll in a community college. His dorm, a small but bright space, over noodles at a nearby shop. We laughed, our smiles free of the past. They'll try to find me, he said calmly, but I'll cut them off. Like you. I squeezed his hand, pride swelling. A relative later whispered that my parents had been evicted. Their $1 lower, $200 rent unpaid. Now scraping by in a crime-riddled East Side apartment, a letter reached my old address, its bitter scrawl blaming me, pleading for help. I let it sit unanswered, a relic of a debt I'd paid in full. Tyler and I, by the river that autumn, shared a different truth. I'm grateful for you, he said, the breeze catching his words. You showed me I could choose better. I looked at the vibrant sky, my heart steady. We don't need their version of family. We have each other. Our story isn't just about leaving pain behind, it's proof you can rewrite your life. Sometimes, peace demands letting go, even if blood ties that wound. What do you think of our choice to walk away? Was it too harsh? Or was it survival? Share your thoughts below and follow for more stories of courage born from chaos. I've always wondered what it would feel like to walk into my parents' home and be seen. Not just noticed, but truly seen. The way sunlight catches a prism and scatters color. I'm Brianna, wait. 28. A mother to Thomas and Grace. Wife to Eric, who's as steady as the oak in our backyard. We live in a modest house 120 miles from where I grew up. A small American town where the air smells of pine and possibility. My parents, Dennis and Marlene, live in a world of their own making. One where love is measured in neatly folded laundry and silence is louder than praise. Growing up, their affection was practical. A lunchbox packed with precision, a shirt ironed to crisp perfection. Hugs were rare. Words of warmth, rarer still. I thought that was normal. Assumed every family spoke in gestures instead of words. Now, as an adult, I try to stitch us together with weekly phone calls and visits every other month. I packed Thomas and Grace into the car, their chatter filling the 2-hour drive, hoping this time my mother might ask about my bookkeeping work or my father might look up from his newspaper. But the visits are always the same, polite. Like stepping into a stranger's parlor. My mother steers the conversation to Safe Harbor's weather. Her garden's zucchini yield. The neighbor's new fence. My father asks Eric about his job. Never mine. His eyes fixed on the sports section. Eric says it feels like we're visiting acquaintances, not family. And I nod. Though the truth stings. They're not rude, just indifferent. A quiet dismissal that settles like dust. Then there's Ryan, my younger brother. All charm and easy smiles. He lives closer to them. His life a whirlwind of spontaneity they adore. When they speak of him, their faces glow, a warmth I've never quite touched. They don't mean to compare us, I tell myself, but the contrast lingers, sharp as a winter gust. I keep calling, keep visiting, keep hoping, because that's what daughters do. I'm not sure if it's love or habit, but it's all I've known. And for now, it's enough. The first weekend of December 2024, I dialed my mother's number, my breath catching as I asked if we could visit that Saturday. Her pause was brief but heavy, a hesitation cloaked in, "We're having some people over, but come if you don't mind." I should have heard the warning in her voice. But hope is a stubborn thing. Eric and I packed the kids into our sedan. The 120-mile drive humming with Grace's songs and Thomas's questions about snow. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, Ryan's sleek car and Vanessa's SUV gleamed under the streetlights, laughter spilling from the open front door like a melody I wasn't invited to sing. Eric gave me a small shrug, his eyes saying what I couldn't, this wasn't our place. Inside, the house was a postcard of festivity garland draped along the banisters, a cinnamon candle flickering on the mantel, the skeleton of a Christmas tree waiting for ornaments. My parents, Ryan, Vanessa, and their 3 kids crowded around the dining table, cider mugs steaming. "Brianna," my mother said, her smile too wide. "You brought the children. How lovely." No one rose to greet us. Ryan nodded, mid-story about a ski trip to a Colorado chalet, while Vanessa, in a cream sweater, showed my mother photos on her phone, her laughter bright as crystal. I ushered Thomas and Grace inside, Eric hanging our coats in silence. My kids hovered at the room's edge, their quiet observance louder than words. They knew this wasn't their space. My father tossed Thomas a distracted, "Hey there," without lifting his eyes from his paper, while Grace got no glance at all. Ryan's youngest, meanwhile, perched on Dad's lap, crumbling a cookie. My mother fussed over Vanessa's coat, calling her my elegant girl, a phrase that pierced me. I set a tin of gingerbread cookies we'd baked on the side table. "We made these together," I said, but my mother barely looked up. "We've got plenty of sweets." "Dear," Eric's hand grazed my arm. His whisper, "Don't take it personally," a lifeline I couldn't grasp. Vanessa flaunted a designer bracelet, and my mother gasped as if it were a relic. I sat, a spectator in my own family, watching my kids try to join their cousins, only to be edged out of a tablet game. We left after an hour, the festive glow dimming behind us. In the car, Thomas's voice was small. "Mum, did we do something wrong?" My throat tightened. "No, Sweetheart. Not at all. That night, a voicemail from my mother waited, her tone soft, almost fragile. Brianna, your father's car is making that noise again. We don't have the extra right now. If you could help, we'd be grateful. I stared at the phone, the warmth of her voice clashing with the chill of the day. Ryan's wealth vacation homes. Luxury cars loomed in my mind. Why me? Why always me? I didn't ask. Not yet. But the question burned, a spark I couldn't extinguish. The voicemail lingered like frost on a window pane, my mother's soft plea for car repair money chilling my resolve. By Monday, I sat at our kitchen table, the laptop glowing with our bank account's modest balance. Eric brewed coffee, his silence a steady hand on my shoulder. I typed in $1, $500, my fingers hesitating before hitting send. The transfer was a reflex, born of years answering their delicate requests for a water heater, prescriptions, once even their dog's surgery. Not obligation, but a daughter's quiet vow to prove her worth. Hours later, my mother texted, "You're a blessing. Sweetheart." Thank you. That word sweetheart unraveled something in me. A thread of hope I hadn't felt since childhood. Maybe the coldness of Saturday's visit was a fluke, a moment lost in holiday bustle. Maybe they'd see me now. I threw myself into Christmas preparations, the hope rekindling like a candle's flicker. In the evenings, I baked spiced apple muffins with Grace, her giggles dusting the flower-strewn counter. Thomas doodled a snowman for a card, his tongue peeking out in concentration. I poured hours into a photo book, arranging snapshots of our messy pancake mornings, school plays, hikes through autumn leaves. It wasn't just a gift, it was a bridge, a way to say, "This is us. Please know us." I mailed the muffins and card, imagining my mother's smile as she opened the package. Christmas was unspoken but certain. We'd always gone, braving snowstorms, fevers, anything. This year, after my help, they'd want us there. I was sure, but hope came at a cost. That night, I pored over our budget, trimming grocery lists, less fresh produce, no treats for the kids' lunches. Eric didn't complain, just kissed my forehead, his eyes soft with understanding. "You're carrying too much," he murmured. I smiled, but my chest tightened, the weight of their indifference pressing harder. Still, I clung to the vision of us gathered around their table, Grace in her red sweater, Thomas sharing his drawings. I planned to bring pies, maybe that cranberry chutney my mother once praised. The photo book would sit under their tree, proof of our love. It was early December, and the holidays stretched ahead, a canvas for reconciliation. I told myself the sting of Saturday was my sensitivity, that their arms would open soon. Eric watched me, his silence louder than words, and I wondered if he saw what I couldn't, that hope, like frost, could melt under scrutiny. The week before Christmas, our home buzzed with a chaos I'd grown to cherish. Eric wrapped gifts on the living room floor, tape sticking to his fingers, while Thomas and Grace scribbled cards at the table, their crayons scattering like confetti. The tree sparkled. Cinnamon buns cooled by the window, and I checked the photo book's delivery status, bound, labeled, ready for my parents. I mused aloud about driving down Christmas Eve, staying through the 26th, bringing pies and chutney. Grace chirped, "Can we wear our matching sweaters?" I nodded, picturing my mother's approval. The phone rang that evening, my mother's name glowing on the screen. I answered, heartened, expecting her to confirm our plans. "Brianna, are you still coming for Christmas?" she asked. Her voice clipped. "We were thinking the 24th, staying a couple of nights," I said, words tumbling. "The kids are excited." And I made the photo book. She cut me off. "Ryan and Vanessa are bringing friends from Aspen. They'll stay over. And with all the kids, it's too much. The house is full." My breath caught, the room tilting. "We always come," I whispered. She chuckled, I sound like breaking glass. It's a tight squeeze. Sweetheart, maybe January. Just us girls. The call ended, and I stared at the gift pile. The photo book mocking me. Eric's eyes met mine. His silence, a question. We're not going, I said, voice hollow. Thomas, in the doorway, asked, Did Grandma forget us? I shook my head, unable to speak. 3 days later, the phone rang again. My mother's voice was syrupy, asking for $2. Some dollars for an orthopedic recliner for my father's back. I closed my eyes, the words spilling before I could stop them. You want me to pay for it? I sent $1. $500 2 weeks ago. And you didn't let us come for Christmas. Her pause was icy. I explained. The house is full of Ryan's friends. My voice trembled. Not just his family friends. We weren't even a thought. She bristled. Ryan works hard. He needs the break. So do I. I snapped. But you don't care. You call when you need money. And I send it. Always. Her tone flattened. You're being dramatic. The truth poured out. Sharp and unyielding. You don't ask Ryan for money. Do you? You ask me because I won't say no. Silence. Then, deliberately, she said, Ryan brings joy. You bring stress. We love his family more. They're alive. Polished. Cheerful. You're always watching. Waiting for something to be wrong. We helped you college. Your first job. You owe us. My lips parted. A cold stone sinking in my chest. I owe you. Her voice sharpened. Yes. Brianna. Family steps up. I hung up. The words echoing like a slammed door. That night. I sat by the fireplace, the photo book in my hands. Its pages held our laughter, our love. Thomas's gap-toothed grin, Grace's muddy boots, Eric's quiet smile. I opened the cover, then tossed it into the flames. It curled, blackened, and was gone. 2 days later, my mother called again, her tone falsely bright. Maybe you could come alone. Stay in the guest room. Vanessa wouldn't mind switching. I gripped the table. You want me to leave my family for a guest room promised to your favorite child's guests? That's not an olive branch. It's humiliation. Before she could reply, I hung up, my hands steady, opening our banking app. I canceled the $200 monthly transfer I'd sent for 4 years. Eric entered, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Everything okay? I'm done, I said. The words, a vow. No more money. No more favors. He wrapped his arms around me, whispering, Good. I've been waiting for you to say that. The tree lights blinked, and for the first time, I felt the weight lift. A fragile freedom taking root. The ashes of the photo book were cold by Christmas Eve, but our home glowed with a warmth I hadn't expected. Eric strung extra lights, their soft flicker dancing on the walls, while Thomas and Grace built a blanket fort, their laughter a balm. We baked cookies, the edges singed but sweet, and played board games until midnight, the clatter of dice louder than my lingering doubts. Yet, 3 days before Christmas, Grace's morning question, are we still going to Grandma's, pierced the joy? Her eyes searching mine, I knelt, brushing her hair back, and promised we'd make our magic. The words steadied me, but the silence from my parents gnawed, a void where their voices used to be. On December 29th, scrolling through a recipe blog, I stumbled onto Ryan's public profile. A photo stopped my breath, my parents' living room, aglow with holiday cheer. My father on the couch with a wine glass, Ryan beside him. Vanessa perched elegantly, their kids tumbling nearby. My mother stood in the background, cradling Ryan's youngest, her smile radiant. The caption read, Grateful for family, nothing more important. No trace of us. As if we'd never existed. I scrolled further, a video of them singing by the piano, a snowball fight in the yard. My mother toasting the whole family under one roof. The word whole burned, a blade twisting in my gut. I snapped my phone shut. The festive images searing my resolve, Ryan called that afternoon. His voice breezy. Hey, sis. Mom's confused about how long you'll stay upset over Christmas. I let the silence stretch. She said you're sensitive, that it's not worth holding on to. He added, chuckling, you saw the photos, right? It was relaxed. A proper family. My throat tightened. A proper family because we weren't there. He sighed. Dismissive, don't twist it. Mom tries. And Dad's not getting younger. She doesn't need drama. Drama, I echoed. Voice low. Being told there's no room while you host guests isn't drama, it's erasure. He offered a hotel stay next year. A hollow fix. No. Ryan, I said. Steady now. She got no stress. No me. No reminders of the family you all prefer. Shiny. I hung up. My pulse even. The call a final thread cut. Pressure mounted from others. Aunt Carol texted. Your mother's heartbroken. Family matters. Cousin Linda called. Her chat veering to, life's short. Let it go. A letter arrived. My mother's script clinical. You're choosing estrangement. We gave you everything, a roof. An education. You have responsibilities. No mention of my kids. Eric. Or remorse. Just debt cloaked as duty. I folded it into a drawer. Its weight no longer mine. Then, mid-January, my mother called. Her tone cool. Your father's medical bills piled up. Nothing serious. Just expenses. Can you help? I pressed my temple. I stopped pretending things are fine. She scoffed. You're dramatic. No. I said, firm. I'm done giving pieces of myself to be tolerated. The silence held no power over me. I hung up, blocking her number. Then Ryan's. Then my father's. Each click, a stone in a wall I'd finally built. January thawed into February. The silence from my family no longer a wound but a quiet expanse. Like snow blanketing a field, our home hummed with small joys, movie nights under quilts. A new sage-green paint on the hallway walls. My bookkeeping clients growing as I set firm boundaries. I bought daisies at the market, their petals bright against our kitchen's worn table. A gift to myself without guilt. One March afternoon. Ryan emailed, no subject, can we talk? Not about Mom. Curiosity nudged me to a park bench. The air crisp with spring's promise. He sat, his expensive jacket out of place. His confidence dimmed. Mom's upset. But she's not calling. He said, I think she knows you're serious. I raised an eyebrow. That I'm not her bank. He shifted. Admitting. Dad's fine. No back pain. No recliner needed. They never asked me for money. The truth settled. Not a shock, but a release. Like a knot untying. I'd carried their burdens, thinking it proved my love, only to learn it was a lie they'd woven. I'm done chasing people who won't look. I said, more to the wind than him. Ryan nodded sheepishly. You seem lighter. We parted without fanfare. A nod. And I walked away. The park's budding trees a mirror to my renewal. That evening, I deleted their messages, my parents. Ryan's each swipe a step into clarity. I texted Eric, let's plan Easter. Just us. Our real family. His reply, a heart emoji, warmed me. Easter planning brought Grace's whisper as I tucked her into bed. I liked Christmas at home. Can we do it again? I brushed her cheek, promising. Every holiday. Sweetheart. Just like that. The hallway's dim glow wrapped us. A cocoon of our making? I began journaling again. Words spilling like seeds. Each page a reclaiming of my voice. My sleep deepened. Eric noticing with a grin over morning oatmeal. The house, once heavy with unspoken pleas, breathed easier. Filled with laughter over burnt toast and Thomas's lopsided paper kites. I didn't check my mother's social media or family threads. Their absence a gift. Standing on our porch, watching Eric and the kids chase fireflies. I felt peace, not fleeting but rooted. A garden I'd tended at last. As spring bloomed into April, I sat on our porch, a mug of chamomile tea warming my hands, the soft hum of crickets weaving through the evening air. The journey from that December chill to this quiet moment taught me a truth I'd long buried. My worth isn't tethered to those who refuse to see it. For years, I poured myself into my parents' expectations, believing love was earned through sacrifice. $1, $500 for a car, $200 monthly transfers, endless visits met with indifference. Each act was a plea for their approval, a hope that my efforts would carve a place in their hearts beside Ryan's effortless charm. But their words "you bring stress. We love his family" more shattered that illusion, revealing a ledger of obligation, not affection. The pain of their rejection, sharp as frost, forced me to confront the cost of my silence. I dimmed my light, clipping coupons and trimming dreams to fuel their needs, thinking it made me good. Yet, in the ashes of that burned photo book, I found clarity. Love doesn't demand depletion, cutting ties, blocking numbers. Ignoring their letters wasn't anger, but necessity. A reclaiming of my voice. Grace's smile as we planned Easter. Eric's steady hand in mine. Thomas's laughter over kite strings. These were my family, my true north. I learned to choose myself, to buy daisies without guilt, to journal my truths, to build a life where peace isn't borrowed but grown. The lesson wasn't just letting go, it was understanding that I am enough, not for what I give, but for who I am. That truth, like the cricket song, hums steadily now, guiding me forward.